Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our webinar today. We are so excited to spend the next hour talking about the Student Financial Wellness Survey, or SFWS, and hearing directly from 3 institutional leaders who have used the survey to understand their students' experiences and strengthen support efforts on their campuses. Today's session is designed to be both practical and conversational. We'll start with a brief overview of what we're seeing nationally in the data, share how institutions are using SFWS findings, and discuss what participation looks like. Then we'll spend most of our time hearing directly from our panelists about their experiences, the insights that surprised them the most, and the ways they have used the results to inform decision-making. Whether you're considering participating for the first time or are looking for new ways to leverage student data, we hope you'll leave today with a clearer understanding of how the Student Financial Wellness Survey can support your institution and what strategies you can apply in your own context. So before we begin, I would like to introduce today's speakers. I'm Allyson Cornett, Director of Research at Trellis Strategies, and I'll be serving as the moderator for today's discussion. I'm also joined by Abby Willems from Trellis Strategies. Abby serves as our lead recruiter for the Student Financial Wellness Survey and works closely with institutions throughout the participation process. We're especially grateful to be joined by 3 institutional leaders who bring different perspectives and experiences with student success and well-being. First, I'll introduce Dr. Julie Alig, who joined the community college system in New Hampshire in November 2025 as Director of Institutional Research and Student Success. In this position, Dr. Alig advises system and college leadership on policies related to increasing student access and success through the analysis of data. Next, we are joined by Dr. Bob Haas, who is the Chief Strategy Officer at Marion Technical College, where he has served as a faculty member, assessment coordinator, and provost. In addition to his leadership at Marion Technical College, Dr. Haas serves as consultant for the Ohio Association of Community Colleges and as a peer reviewer and Student Success Academy mentor for the Higher Learning Commission. And then we are also joined today by Amy O'Keefe, who is founder and executive director of CARE and the FAST Academy at Texas Women's University, where she leads initiatives supporting student parents, veterans, foster care experienced students, and students facing crisis through wraparound services, emergency aid, and basic needs program. So later in the webinar, you'll get to hear how these 3 experts have used data to better understand student needs, communicate with stakeholders, and ultimately support planning efforts, all with the goal of improving outcomes for the students that they serve. And then a quick slide for those who may be less familiar with Trellis Strategies. We are a nonprofit research and technical assistance organization committed to advancing post-secondary success through research, evaluation, and data-driven decision-making. For more than 40 years, we have worked alongside institutions, systems, foundations, policymakers, and practitioners to better understand the challenges students face and provide them with solutions that meet them where they are. Since 2018, we have surveyed more than 9 million students, and in 2025 alone, produced more than 1,000 reports and analyses for institutions and partners across the country. The Student Financial Wellness Survey is one of our flagship research initiatives and has become one of the largest efforts in the country focused on understanding the connections between financial well-being, basic needs, mental health, and student success. So what exactly is the Student Financial Wellness Survey? At its core, the SFWS is a student-centered survey that helps institutions and systems understand the experiences and circumstances that shape student success and well-being for modern learners, both inside and outside the classroom. But participation in the SFWS is about a lot more than just collecting data. Institutions use their findings to identify unmet needs, strengthen support services, inform strategic planning, support grant applications and fundraising efforts, evaluate initiatives, and communicate the realities facing students to campus and community stakeholders. In addition to receiving institution-specific results, participating colleges and universities can benchmark their findings against peer institutions and national results, helping them understand where their students' experiences are similar to or different from broader trends. So to help illustrate why this work matters, I want to highlight a few findings for our most recent administration. This was fielded in October and November of 2025 and represents over 65,000 undergraduate students across 153 colleges and universities. And these national findings are the same types of benchmarking data that participating institutions receive alongside their own campus results. And here we can see that nearly 7 in 10 reported experiencing financial challenges while in college, and more than half said that they would have difficulty accessing $500 for an emergency. We also saw that 52% of these students reported worrying about their monthly expenses. And we know that these challenges extend beyond finances alone. More than 4 in 10 of these students experience food insecurity. Over a third reported experiencing housing insecurity. And more than 4 in 10, 42%, showed symptoms consistent with generalized anxiety disorder. And these findings all remind us that today's students are balancing a lot more than just academic responsibilities. Many modern learners are workers, parents, caregivers, or handling all 3 roles at the same time. In fact, 34% of SFWS respondents describe themselves primarily as workers attending school rather than students who work. And while we can see here that most students, 3 in 4, still believe that college is a worthwhile investment, these findings really underscore to me how important institutional supports and resources can be in helping students persist and succeed. And having quantitative data like this is obviously incredibly valuable, but one of the things that institutions tell us time and time again is that the stories behind the number are often what resonate most strongly with campus leaders. And so every year, we have the privilege of amplifying the voices of tens of thousands of students who share their experiences with us through open-ended responses in the Student Financial Wellness Survey. And these insights can provide really important context that help bring these statistics that we just shared to life. I'm not going to read these quotes, so just take some time and read through them on your own on the slide. But as you kind of make your way through some of these quotes, a common theme emerges where students are incredibly resilient, but many are navigating competing responsibilities and significant challenges. We hear all the time from students who are working full-time while attending classes, raising their children, supporting family members, managing health concerns, and trying to stay enrolled despite financial uncertainty. And at the same time, we also hear hope. Many students continue to see higher education as a pathway to greater opportunity for themselves and their families, even when that journey is difficult. And one of the benefits of participating in the Student Financial Wellness Survey is that institutions receive a comprehensive report that combines institutional results, peer and national benchmarking, and student perspectives like the quotes highlighted here, helping campus stakeholders better understand both those hard numbers and the stories behind them. And with that, I will turn it over to Abby, who will walk us through the topics covered by the survey and provide a closer look at what institutions can learn through participation.
Thanks, Allyson. The survey is very wide-reaching. It covers topics from paying for college, use of credit, financial security and behaviors, supporting family while in college. We actually have a new segment on this topic this year on parenting students that we're really excited about. Covers food and housing insecurity, symptoms of mental health, perceptions of return on investment, and public assistance use. And while this does make the survey really long, we do see that students who start the survey do tend to complete it with completion numbers hovering around 87, 88, 89%. So it's a really comprehensive survey. And And we're really proud of the fact that students who do start the survey do complete it, so that we're really able to get a well-rounded perspective on students that institutions can use. And now looking at our participating institutions, as Allyson mentioned earlier, we have been building the survey since 2018. So across those years, we've had over 340 institutions participate, and that has been across 37 states. So we'd love to have everyone on this call participate, but especially if your state is one of those in the blue, we would really love to have you on board. I know of at least one of these states. We have a letter of intent to participate for this year, so we're really excited. We'll have at least get that number up to 38. But we're really proud of how comprehensive our responses are, and they come from across the nation. So as Allyson mentioned, when your institution participates, you do get nationwide benchmarking, as well as we can work with you on some custom peer group benchmarking as well. And just so you can see these little QR code links here, or you can type in this URL here. These will take you to our national report and infographic for the 2025 survey. These also will give you a good idea of what the institutional report and infographics look like as well. But every spring we also do publish the aggregate reports. So you can, look at these, give you an idea of what's covered in the survey and what the reports will look like as well. If you're interested in seeing actual institution sample reports, we do have sample reports, and we'll share our contact information later in the presentation, but that's something that I can send you. But I think that these national aggregate reports give you a really strong idea of what the institution level reports will look like. And kind of as I alluded to, each institution who participates receives that institution level report, that infographic, but then you will also receive the de-identified data file, which is something we were able to start offering with the 2025 survey. So we're really excited how folks have started using that. And then as well as those peer group comparisons, as I mentioned, access to additional ad hoc reporting if there is something that's not in your report that you're really interested into diving more deeply into. Let's say, for instance, your students who are workers or your parenting students. That's something we're always happy to do as well. And then a presentation to campus stakeholders. And lastly, those aggregate national reports. And the steps to participate. So we are currently actively in the recruitment process for the 2026 survey launching this fall. So by September the 21st, we would need all participation materials. And those participation materials include a letter of intent, which is just a way of saying, hey, we're on board. Since it is a free survey, that's kind of our official first step in participating. We have two options for that letter of intent. One is a more traditional kind of PDF form that you can either fill out the template one we have or write one from scratch. Either way works for us. We also have a fillable online form that we use for that letter of intent as well. So whichever your institution is more comfortable with. And then the next step is the IRB determination. We do have an external IRB approval from Brainy IRB. This is the first year that we've done that. It was ruled as an exempt approval. So I'm always happy to share that with folks. I'm also always happy to go through internal IRB review if necessary as well. I have filled out a lot of IRBs I've been at Charles a little over 3 years. This is my fourth year doing the survey. So I'm always happy to do those and kind of to go through the internal process as well, if your institution requires that on your end. And then the last part of the participation materials is the student data file. So the survey is administered directly from our Qualtrics system to try to take some of that off of your plates internally. But that means that we have a student data file that we request the institution sent to us. It includes student names, emails, and a couple of demographic data points that you would upload to our secure file sharing system. And then all of that is due by September the 21st. And we would kind of work together on getting all of those steps through the finish line. I would be, if you choose to participate, I would be your point of contact. I'm always happy to meet to discuss, answer any questions, or, to talk to someone else on campus who are like, this is a really good idea, but I need somebody else, some backup, maybe from the institutional research office or, someone in leadership. Always happy to do that as well. So once those steps are complete, the survey will launch towards the end of October, kind of the third week of October. This year, we will launch to 2 years on October the 19th and to 4 years on October the 20th. We used to launch to everyone on the same day, but a few years ago, we got so big that we broke Qualtrics. So now we release the survey on 2 separate days, and then the survey is open for 3 weeks and will close on November the 10th this year. So what we ask institutions to do ahead of that is to send a heads up email to students to say, hey, this is coming. It's real. It's not spam. Please answer it. It's important to us, and kind of articulate why that is important. And then we launch the survey and send reminders. We do at the midpoint send a non-responder file so that if you would like to send another reminder, that you're welcome to do that, but that is optional. And then we handle all of the project management, the incentives and survey administration. We work together, kind of whoever your institution chooses the point of contact and myself to get through that process. And then in March, we send the full report, the infographic, and that de-identified data file so that you can start using the results on campus. And this last slide here is just so you can learn more about the Student Financial Wellness Survey. I think we'll probably put this slide up again at the end of the presentation. But this little QR code here will take you to our Getting Started page. You can also email surveys@trellisstrategies.org. That goes to several members of our team, including myself and Allyson. I will likely, unless I'm out of office, I'm usually the one who responds to inquiries and kind of go through that process. So you can see the dates again there. And then, as Allyson said, we will be sending these materials out to everyone who registered for the presentation for the webinar. And so you'll be able to access those steps there as well. But I'm always happy for you to send me an email or hop on a call to clarify anything if you have any questions. And I think that is the end of our part, and we're going to turn it over for the fun part of the panel discussion.
Alrighty, thank you, Abby. So we have talked about the survey itself, the topics covered, and some of the findings that we are seeing nationally. But one of the reasons that we wanted to host today's webinar is because the most compelling stories often come from the institutions who have actually used the data. So to help bring that perspective to life, I am really excited to be joined by 3 outstanding leaders who have participated in the Student Financial Wellness Survey and have used the results to better understand their students. So to get us started, I'd love to hear a bit about each of your organizations and what initially brought you to the Student Financial Wellness Survey. So if you could tell us a little bit about your role, your institution, and what led your institution to participate in the Student Financial Wellness Survey, if we can get started. with Dr. Julie Alig.
Thanks so much. Dr. Julie Alig. I'm the Director of Institutional Research and Student Success at the Community College System of New Hampshire. We're located in Concord, New Hampshire. The Community College System comprises 7 institutions around the state. And let's see, this was the first time that the system participated. And I only joined the system about 7 months ago, so I wasn't part of the decision to participate. I'm so glad that my colleagues did, in their wisdom, did decide to participate. What I've been able to glean, though, in conversations with people about, so why did you? There was interest from the colleges themselves at different levels between the faculty and the leadership. And there was also interest among some of our partners across the state, especially some of the nonprofit partners that are also very dedicated to supporting students.
Great, thank you. We'll kick it over to Dr. Bob Haas.
Okay, thank you. Marion Technical College is a small community college about 50 miles north of Columbus. We serve about 3,800 students each year. About half of those are dual enrollment students. We also have a prison program that serves about 300 students. Neither of those populations is included in the survey, so we focus primarily on what we term general students. There's about 1,300 of those. My role at Marion Tech, as you heard earlier, has sort of evolved over time, or changed over time, I guess is a better way to say it. The interest for us to join this, I'm in some ways, maybe this isn't exactly a great way to do it, but the cost was a big factor. Knowing that it wasn't going to cost anything and that we could get a nationally recognized survey of students that would help us and help inform us about student practices was attractive. I don't remember exactly how many years we've done it now, 4 or 5, I think, and we do it every year, and we look for trends that go from year to year. So it's been a really good thing, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So what led us to participate initially was it was free. What's led us to continue to participate is the value we get for a small college to have that sort of data analysis. In my role as Chief Strategy Officer now, and even prior, as I had other roles, I was still the IR person. But at a small college, you get to wear a lot of different hats. So having the reporting that we get from this is just very, very, very valuable.
Thanks, Bob. And then I'll also pass it over to Amy.
Great, thank you. It's so nice to be here. There, I'm back. Okay. I'm delighted to be here because I would have clawed my way to be a part of this panel. I love this survey so much. So my role as executive director, I'm actually in the Division of Student Life, so a little different than my colleagues. A little bit about Texas Women's. We are the nation's largest university system focused on women. We're actually public, and we're located in 3 cities, Dallas, Houston, and I'm on the main campus in Denton. And so each campus has its own kind of personality and culture. About 11 years ago, we had a new chancellor, and with the new chancellor brings an opportunity for a fresh look and perspective and for some reorganization. And so she was looking at my department, which was focusing on commuter and non-traditional students, which is super broad, and we're primarily a commuter. In fact, Dallas and Houston are 100% commuter, and we're about 85% here in Denton. And so looking at persistence of these groups that have some risk, and knowing that there was a lot of financial challenges. My office focuses on veterans and military affiliated students, and as mentioned earlier, parenting students and students with lived experience of foster care, as well as running all the basic needs initiatives. Emergency aid was just really starting to ramp up about 11 years ago. And so with this new chancellor was a time to think about how could we be addressing financial well-being. It was sort of a new way to think about instead of thinking about students always in crisis. But could we look at this from an angle where it could be part of our retention plan? And so when we learned about Trellis, we're like, similar to Bob, the price was right. And on top of that, it looked like it was going to be a tool that would not be a big administrative burden to use the data. Like sometimes we do these surveys and then only one person on campus, A, has access, and B, understands what the heck are the implications and what do you do with them. And so it was really at this pivotal point in our evolution of my department that we learned about the survey, which I think we've been doing it going all the way back for quite a while. My line in the sand is always before COVID. So we were doing it before COVID, and it's just immensely helpful.
Yeah, thank you all for that. And I always really enjoy that question because institutions often come to the survey for different reasons. Some are looking to better understand student needs. Some are looking to explore specific challenges like food insecurity or mental health. And then others are trying to better inform maybe some strategic planning or resource allocation through a no-cost tool like the Student Financial Wellness Survey. So would love to dive right into our next question. So thinking back to before your institution or system participated, what were you hoping to learn about your students and what findings stood out most once you had the data?
So what did we hope to learn? Honestly, we didn't know what we didn't know. And so we knew that we wanted to support our students, and in conversations, we know anecdotally of many of their challenges, but we didn't have any hard data behind any of that. So broadly, that's, I think, what we were hoping to get out of this. What are the things that stood out the most? I can think of a couple. I've presented findings to more than several groups. And the statistic about the fact that 1 in 5 of our students had run out of money 8 or more times in the year, that when I came to that slide and pointed out that if they took this in October or November, that means that more or less once a month they had run out of money. You could see on the faces of the people in the audience that hit home, and it hit home hard. So that's one thing that really stood out. I'll say the second is the questions about housing. Here in New Hampshire, we have a dearth of affordable housing, certainly not any different from anywhere else in the country, but it's very much a topic right now. And so it allows us and also some of our partners to bring into discussions on that topic the impact of our community college students, 40 to 50% of which are working adults. So we're able to do that. And I'll say also the other one that really stood out was the usage of the short-term debt products. And it was very helpful, the way that the survey was structured, that you didn't simply ask, okay, are you having financial challenges? Yes, no, maybe. But you really drilled down and allowed us to have more of that granularity. And I would say that's somewhat helpful for us and also somewhat helpful for our partners here in the state.
I think for us, it was, I'm a data person. I like numbers. I recognize the value of anecdotal stories. I really do, and I've come to appreciate those even more as time has passed. So prior to the survey, we would hear about a student who might be living in a car for a couple of weeks or something like that. As the person primarily responsible for sort of gathering that data and turning it into action, I said, okay, that's a student, that's bad, but what do we do? So having some hard data, and we have about a 13% response rate, which isn't, I'd like anything short of 100. I'm not sure is as good as I'd like it, but 13%, from what I understand, is pretty good. It lets us talk with some specificity about what our students really are facing, and I think communicating that across the campus, and as we'll talk about here in a little bit, to other audiences, is very valuable. We are a technical college by our roots. We started offering transfer degrees about 10 or 11 years ago. Our average student age is 27. And so one of the things that stood out for us is that most of our students describe themselves as workers who go to school, not students who also work. And I think that just that mental shift, which is one of the things on the infographic, helps us understand that, okay, if a student gets called into overtime, maybe we need to let them make up work, things like that. It's not a lazy issue or something like that. I think that that's helped turn the tide for some of our faculty who, quite frankly, are appropriately concerned with the rigor of our courses. But there's also the recognition of the lives that our students lead and how we need to accommodate that and maintain rigor at the same time. So I think that's some of the things that we've learned from this.
Yeah, I second what both of you were saying. I was really trying to think about what was life before we had awesome trellis survey data. And the main thing I can recall is that it was well understood, the high percentage of students we have that receive Pell. There was a general understanding of that, and that's kind of where it stopped. Like, okay, we know they all have Pell, or that we have a lot of students with high need, but beyond that, we were kind of just scratching our heads of what do we do about that. And I can also recall at that time, there was a lot of, in student affairs work anyway, there was a lot of popularity of these presentations of just tell students not to stop buying a latte, like stop going to Starbucks. And it felt, really kind of offensive when you're thinking about how complex our students' lives are and how complicated it is and all the sacrifice they need to make. And so having that first year that we got the data back, having it in print and benchmarked, I think was pretty jarring to see. We had 75% of students report that they were experiencing challenges. And that also gave us an anchor of, okay, we need to take some action and we need to look at some interventions and see this is more than just buying a latte or not buying a latte. And so that was, I think, one of the most distinctive things I can remember before we had the data.
Okay, thank you all for that. And this is actually a great segue to our next question about long-term value, where, Bob, I would love to bring you in here. We touched on this earlier, but Marion Technical College, as well as many schools within the Ohio Association of Community Colleges, have participated multiple times. So what has made the survey valuable enough for your institution to continue participating year after year?
So I'll talk about the value to Marion Tech first, and then go to the OACC. For Marion Tech, we started a Connection Center food pantry, again, just prior to COVID. And we had some initial grant funding for it to help get it started. But it's so critical for us to be able to say to potential donors, this is what our students are experiencing. And here's a survey that shows it, and hand them the infographic sheet. I think it's a pretty eye-opening sort of thing for a lot of people in our community. Marion is as I mentioned earlier, a rural community. We are adjacent to one of the richest counties in the state, that's Delaware County, Ohio. But our students aren't necessarily experiencing that level of wealth. And so, but at the same time, we don't have generally homeless people walking the streets or things like that. And so it's really a mixture. And having the data year after year that we can point to with a a nationally recognized survey, I think is just been very valuable, especially as we try to implement services and also talk to donors who can help us sustain our the efforts in that area. From the Ohio Association of Community Colleges standpoint, we're an association of 22 colleges, and we are the OACC, which is Ohio Association of Community Colleges, OACC, serves as a legislative, I don't want to say lobbying exactly, but the interface for all of our colleges with the legislators. So same concept for OACC. When they talk to a legislator, they can say X% of our students are facing this issue. Here's why we need to continue the state funding. Here's why we need to encourage colleges to provide support. And we can couple that with some of the anecdotal things that we hear. But legislators hear anecdotal things all the time, and most of them are more keyed into data sorts of things, especially the infographics that are prepared there. It just makes it a very easy. It's never easy, but it facilitates our communication with the legislators on a statewide basis, where we advocate for all 22 colleges. So I think that's the most value in that part of it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Dr. Haas. I love hearing that the survey has provided Marion Tech and OACC not only with those snapshot data of how students are experiencing, in fall 2025, fall 2024, but also kind of helping track how student experiences in Ohio and in your area are evolving over time, and whether those investments from those funders are making a difference. So that broader perspective is also something that we've seen at the system level. And Julie, your perspective is just so particularly unique because you've had the opportunity to look across multiple institutions at the system level. So how has having data specific to New Hampshire community colleges influenced conversations about student needs and support strategies?
Yeah, I would say in two ways. One, we are a system. So we are 7 siblings plus the chancellor's office where I am. However, we are 7 institutions. And so there's always that interplay between, one group, 7 individuals, right? And so especially for something like food insecurity, which here in New Hampshire, 3 of those 7, almost 4, are definitely very rural, what we would call rural. And 3 of them are very, very urban feelings. So food insecurity is hitting everyone across our state and our students, but it's hitting them in different ways. And so just taking that one example of being able to look across the 7 at what each institution's students are saying about food insecurity, and being able to look and see where students might be responding more or less, and then looking to see how each institution is addressing that with their students. So it's not so much we have 7 different, but we have 7 flavors. And so being able to talk about that and to be able to deploy our resources in one way or another, especially at the institution level, is something that we're really focused on right now. Again, not a surprise across the country, community colleges are seeing a lot of capacity constraints, shall we say, and strained budgets. And so being able to see kind of something that's actually working, and we can see that it's working, that gives a little more oomph let's say, to other colleges who might have been wavering or might not be sure what to do. So to be able to do that and to have that kind of cross-pollination, that's been really helpful. And I've seen that with several others also. It's also really helpful just to jump on the same bandwagon that Bob and Amy have said about the importance and the usefulness of having that data. Here in New Hampshire, we have 7 community colleges. We've got 1 Ivy League school. We've got an R1 public flagship. And then we've got, like in much of the rest of New England, a lot of small privates. So in order not to be drowned out, when people are talking, when we're talking more in the political sphere, let's say, or in our communities about college education, most people default to 4-year, going right out of finishing high school. It's just kind of their default, what they think. Having this data here and being able to say, no, look at how varied it is across the 7 institutions really helps to bring home some of these challenges that our students really are facing.
Yeah, thanks so much, Julie. And something that I really appreciate about system level participation is that ability to move beyond assumptions and understand where student experiences may be similar and where they may differ across campuses. And, of course, collecting data is only valuable if it actually informs action. So Amy, Texas Women's University has long been recognized for its work supporting students with complex needs. So if you could share an example of how the Student Financial Wellness Survey has informed planning, decision-making, or resource allocation at Texas Women's University.
Sure, I'm happy to. So initially, the findings impacted my department directly. And so that was the first thing it impacted was our emergency aid process. So it really had us take a step back and re-examine our process. And we shifted away from what I would call a focus on documentation. Like that was the focus, like, oh, we've got to have all the pieces put together correctly, to this like broader perspective of this is really about retention. And not just simply being good stewards of these funds, which I'm not saying is simple. It's not. Emergency aid is super complex, but that just a shift sounds kind of nuanced, but it changed our process. And the other part of this that was really helpful was we discovered that we had a group of students of a particular group of first generation students who we learned through our findings in alignment also with some work we were doing internally, that there was this perception, or what they actually shared with us, that their families had discouraged them from seeking support services. Like the term was "don't look needy." And so by being able to, when we meet with students individually through the emergency aid process, this actually helped us break down some of the stigma by showing, hey, look across the country. This is part of what college students all across the country are experiencing. So I like to share that example because I don't think it's something people think about, how you can use this data in a way when you're working with students individually, and we work to shift that stigma. But the other part of that was also raising a greater awareness of we started a different way of doing case management, working with students before, like, again, when all those HERF funds hit during COVID, it was like, how do we get this money out? And as quickly as we could, we were all faced with the same sorts of challenges. And how do you know if you're making an impact or not? What's equitable? How do you make these decisions when you don't have a lot of time? Having the trellis data right at our fingertips helped us when we got past the HERF funding to see we really had to lean in hard to financial well-being. Like, we need a strategy that is both preventative and reactionary. And so as my department was moving through that, plot twist, thanks in large part due to the trellis data that we were able to show, the university actually came up with resources to create a whole new department. I would have never predicted that in 1,000 years. Like, my department was fully leading it. And what happened was we created, or I didn't create it, they using our information as a basis, they created the Student Money Management Center because there was a recognition this is such a large issue of helping students understand how to maximize their financial aid, what borrowing is helpful, what borrowing is dangerous, just knowing so much more about our students. They were able to create this whole department, which has peer mentors, a holistic curriculum, far more than what could have occurred if it had just stayed within my department. So that's kind of a quick example, but I like that example because I think it shows how you can use the data in a real micro way, even with a small team. But also you can use this data in a way that's much broader. And for us, it all goes back to retention. If we can figure out where these hiccups are, which is a nice way of saying what they are for students, and raise the visibility. I could spend the whole entire time talking about parenting students, so I'm saving that for a little later. But there are populations that their needs are just not as visible as other students. And this data, to Bob's point, I can tell 1,000 stories, and I think they're super compelling, and they're great with donors. But you also have to have the numbers. You have to be able to show this isn't just an isolated situation that we all feel kind of badly about. This is something as an institution we need to have a structured way of managing. And that's where the Trellis data has been incredibly helpful with filling that gap. And really, I don't know that the Money Management Center, that really came out of this work.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that's exactly the kind of connection that we're hoping institutions can make with the Student Financial Wellness Survey data. The goal isn't simply to understand student challenges, but really being able to link student well-being and experiences to those indicators of retention and persistence. Okay, so before we switch into Q&A, I've seen some questions coming in, but I would like to close this portion of our discussion with a quick, broader question for the three of you. And I just want to see if the Student Financial Wellness Survey results have changed any conversations on your campus or within your organization.
So it's still early days up here in New Hampshire. I will say one thing that has made people sit up and take notice is the Net Promoter Score. That is something that very well known in business circles, not so much here in higher ed circles. And it's sparked a lot of conversations, especially about what it's actually measuring, but also a little bit behind that, like the whole concept of what is a student, how much is a student a consumer, a lot of those. Anyway, that's been a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Julie.
I would piggyback. Certainly, Amy and Julie have nailed lots of things that apply to us also. I think probably the biggest thing that Trellis has helped us do at Marion Tech, and it isn't necessarily the only factor, but it's certainly a big factor, is in what we call our connection center. We've had, let's just say, a variety of swinging door staff members over the last year, and we finally committed to a near full-time person who is managing all of that, the food bank, the connection to community resources, and so on. And I think the Trellis survey consistently has shown us a need for that, and we were finally able to fund it in the budget. We also track the student success data of students who access the resources in our connection center. And what we found is that those are comparable. Typically, they're the students less likely to persist if you just look at the demographics, but the students who access the resources persist and succeed at about the same rate as students who don't access those resources now. So we think that that's helped turn the tide a bit on that.
Yeah, I agree with both comments. I would say, not to keep going back to emergency aid, but it just fits this so neatly, that one of the things that's changed is we can't think about some of these resources as one size fits all. It makes us very uncomfortable when we talk about finite resources and how we distribute those in a way that is most thoughtful and helpful. And so I really appreciate how easy it is to understand the data from Trellis so that we can then apply it to situations that are very tricky. As an example, parenting students need aid more frequently than non-parenting students. It's a fact. And I can say at Texas Women's University, it's a fact that, and I know that's a strong word, but our parenting students that receive help with childcare graduate at the highest rate compared to any other student, period. And so being able to say that, especially when you have a topic like childcare, which I have to say is a hard thing to get donors too excited about because it's so big, it's so expensive, but it's so fundamental for those students being successful. And so having that data to say, you know what, maybe I can't find childcare that's going to solve everything for our students. But what I can say is when we look at our emergency aid process, is it truly fair that we're going to say you can only apply and be awarded once a semester? Is that fair to students who have children when we know that their needs are more complicated and more expensive? So I can't say we have all the answers for all of that, but I can say without the data, we can't really even have a conversation about it. And so I definitely appreciate that about the Trellis survey.
Great. With that, I would like to thank the three of you so much for your incredibly helpful perspectives and expertise. We're now going to turn over to questions from the audience. So we do have a few questions. If you haven't submitted a question already, please feel free to do so using the Q&A feature or writing it into the chat. We did get one question that was it was more of a logistics question, that asking if the slide deck for this presentation, when it would be available. And so typically that does take about a week for our communications team to clean up the reporting, get everything ready, and then we kind of upload that all together and then send that out to registrants. If you do need the slide deck more quickly than that, you can go ahead and email us at surveys@trellisstrategies.org and we can get you a copy of the slides today. We do have one additional question that I would like to answer live. This is probably for me and Abby as the survey team. Does the institutional report provide insight into whether the students responding to the survey are representative of the population at an institution? So in other words, do you see particular students responding to the survey at higher rates, like parents, adult students, or students experiencing financial stress? So when we collect the information that is required to field the survey from the participating institutions, we collect information on race, ethnicity, age, and gender, credit hours earned, and credit hours attempted, in addition to some basic contact information for the student. When we receive your responses from your students who take the survey, we provide you with a table that compares and contrasts the demographics of those in your population that you provided to us, and then those who responded. And then we also do tests for representativeness that take a look and see which subgroups or groups of students might be represented at slightly higher rates than in the overall population or the population provided to us for the survey. Typically, we do see, as in all volunteer survey research, we do see female students responding at higher rates. And then sometimes we do also see certain racial and ethnic groups responding at higher rates, or students who might be slightly older than the average age of the student at the institution. Okay, I'm not seeing any other Q&A questions coming in, so I do want to be cognizant of time. And so as we do wrap up, I would love to go around one final time, and in just a quick sentence or two, if our three panelists could answer, what's one reason that you would encourage institutions to regularly assess student financial wellness?
I would say because because there is so much going on in our students' lives. Amy, you talked about your latte example. Students' lives are incredibly complex. I think looking at financial wellness is just kind of scratching the surface of that and allows people an entry down into those other questions that are really the meat. Not to say that being able to pay your bills is not the important thing, but simply that there are other drivers going in. And I'm not sure how we would get that data otherwise, other than anecdotally.
Perfect. Thank you, Julie.
I would agree with Julie. I would add the results are the main thing. As the person at our small college that uploads the data, I would also point to the ease of that process. It's not complicated. And for the analysis that we get back, as you mentioned, the demographic analysis, so because that's a question we get right away. Oh, well, just the people who really needed it answer, that kind of thing. But it's an easy process. Trellis in general makes it very easy to administer. They provide communication samples to send to students, recommendations that you can use as a boilerplate when you're sending out something to students to let them know that this may be coming from a place you never heard of before and things like that. So the ease of administration, I think, is another reason that folks should consider it.
Perfect. And Amy?
Yeah, I agree with all of this. So one thing I want to talk about is the Trellis team. So I don't know how many times I've emailed or called, like, I've got this donor. That's usually what it is, a donor, or a last minute grant application. And can you help me with a stat on XYZ? That maybe you don't want me promoting that you're available to do this on short notice, but the team is phenomenal. I mean, I really can't even get over that it's free. I still can't even get over that it's free. The quality is so high. The staff are professional and immensely helpful and responsive. And I guess the thing I would just say is, why would an institution not do it? Like, if my chancellor knew this was out there, this free resource that has influenced so much of the work we do, especially around resources that are finite and difficult to get, like, why would you not be doing it? How do you justify that? So that's how I would wrap it up. I would say Trellis Strategies for President 2026. No, for real.
Thank you.
Super grateful for all the work you do.
Thank you so much, Amy and Julie and Bob, for your time and for sharing your expertise, experiences, and insights today. And thank you to everyone who joined us. We hope today's conversation demonstrated not only the challenges that many students are facing, but also the value of having no-cost, reliable data to understand those challenges and inform action. Like Abby mentioned, the Student Financial Wellness Survey is currently enrolling institutions for the fall 2026 administration. And if you would like to learn more, you can visit our website or reach out to the Trellis team directly. So we will follow up with the recording, slides, and additional resources soon. And thank you all again, and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Thank you so much.